Hey guys, this is Miss Ellison. I am going to give you your first mini lesson over the text, The Test by Angelica Gibb. If you have not yet watched the read aloud that goes along with this lesson, then you need to pause the video now and go back and listen to the story. This video does not make sense unless you have the context of actually already listening to the story, okay? All right, so let's get started. The strategy that we're going to work on today is that good readers will expect stories to have characters that challenge or break some of the rules or customs of the world. Now, this can honestly go for any kind of world. For example, a lot of stories are told in our world. They're realistic to the life that we have right now. One good example would be the story that we were reading just last week, This Is Where It Ends. In that story, Tomas breaks into the principal's office to steal Tyler's permanent record. Guys, that's not allowed. You can't just walk into Mr. Turner's office, for example, steal things from his office and expect that to be just fine. There is definite rules against that sort of behavior. Tomas decided to break them, and we would have to read along further to try and figure out why he decided, or if what he decided to do was a good idea. I know that he went there to help his sister, but that doesn't mean that it was a good decision for him to make. And the author has a purpose for having him do this action in the story. It can also be, though, that the world is different than ours. For example, let's see another example. The Harry Potter series. In that story, students who go to Hogwarts are strictly forbidden from visiting the dark forest behind Hagrid's house. But every single year, Harry and his friends visit the forest. And they pay for it. Awful things happen to them in that forest. They just keep going, and when they do, they have these problems. So this is a rule, a standard that's expected, and Harry breaks rules all the time in his world, actually, and there's a reason for it. There's, a purpose behind the author choosing to have that happen. One more, Catching Fire from the Hunger Games series. One thing that happens, this is an example of a custom being broken. The custom in the capital is that people try to throw up at parties so that they can eat more food. That way they can try all the different foods that are being offered. Katniss and Peeta do not try to do this. They're disgusted, actually. So, they're challenging, they're breaking that custom. Same sort of thing. Different world than ours. Exact same situation, however. So, first thing that you need to do for yourself while you're reading is that you need to decide to ask yourself, what are the accepted customs or rules of the story that you're reading? And just get an idea of what's expected of the characters, okay? So for this particular story, I am recognizing some things, because remember, that story was written in 1940. So some of the accepted customs and even laws of society were really unfair to Black citizens. So, for example, Black people did not have the same rights as white people. This is in the 1940s, which is 20 years or more than 20 years before the Civil Rights Movement, where the people actually fought and won several freedoms and equal rights for themselves. But at this time, and for a long time after this, people who, Black people were commonly treated as inferior. And it was an accepted practice to behave like that, unfortunately. They were generally thought to be uneducated, and their educations didn't hold as much weight as those of white people. And even that's even shown in this story. Like Marion has a college degree. However, that's thought to be like a joke to the inspector, and she's working as a maid, which isn't what you would expect of someone who has a college degree. You would expect something better for them. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the case for this character. Um, they were supposed to be respectful and even deferential to white people, which isn't fair. Like, honestly, the way you want to treat people, you should be respectful to everyone, and hopefully they'll show you that same respect back. But there was no expectation that white people would be respectful to black people. And in the case of this story, the character who is the inspector, like the woman, Mrs. Erickson, she's respectful. She says some things that aren't super cool, but she's mostly trying to be respectful. She has affection for this woman. The inspector, he doesn't try at all. He, in fact, is extremely disrespectful to her, but she has to just put up with it. Let's see. Okay, so the next thing that I did here is I'm thinking about this specific character of Marion, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what things did she do that kind of accept the rules of 1940 and how people behaved? And so I made like just a list of things here that shows that she accepts how she's being treated. She isn't fighting it. She's not resisting it. She's just sort of dealing with it in her own way. First of all, she calls her employer Mrs. Erickson. Even though they seem to have a close, familiar relationship, she doesn't call her by her first name. She's Mrs. Erickson. Very respectful. And also, even though the inspector is calling her Mandy Lou, like he calls her the wrong name on purpose, she still calls him sir. She's still being very deferential to him. She doesn't respond. She doesn't like act up or talk back when she is treated unfairly. So, for example, she just shakes her head like no when the inspector asks if she wants to drive so that she can sneak out at night to visit a man. I mean, it's a really jerk thing to say. And she doesn't like I would have something to say about that if someone asks me if I want my license so that I can go meet up with men. Wow, that is none of your business. She's just no. So I think that's her accepting that in this time period, she's just going to be treated differently, unfortunately. Also, when the inspector just laughs hysterically at the fact that she has a college degree, she doesn't respond at all. She makes no comment. She says nothing. That is her sort of not challenging that she's acting in that scenario like this behavior of his is okay. Now, as far as challenges, I think that there are two ways that she challenges these customs. The two ways that she's saying this is not okay, the way he's behaving. First, I think that when he makes this comment that she probably has a flock of pickaninnies, first of all, that's a disgusting thing to say. It's a racial slur. It shouldn't have been said. And like he's insinuating that she's maybe dirty because she's gonna have so many kids. It's awful. But she doesn't even respond. Like he's kind of asking her a question and she just ignores it. So I think that's her like resisting a little bit his behavior. But then the more obvious example is that she yells, "Damn you," when he makes fun of her for making an error. And I think that the reason she does that at this point is because she knows well, that means I'm going to fail this test again. And I only made one error. It was a small accident anyone could do. Like she just didn't keep her foot on the clutch or something like that. And this is going to ruin everything again. And she's already put up with all this stuff from this man, and it's going to lead nowhere. So, she's obviously very frustrated, and the way he is behaving is not okay. And she obviously is aware of that it's not okay. Okay, so first we decided what are the accepted rules or customs for the story that we're reading, okay? And those are those of 1940. Then we considered one of our characters and decided how, like, have they followed or have they challenged these rules? And finally, the last thing we need to do is we need to think, why did the author choose to have that character break that rule? So, reasons why the author has Marion accept some of the racist customs in the 1940s. First of all, I think that the author wanted to show that this is how people really acted. Also, in reality, Marion would not have had any choice but to sort of accept the way she was treated. Finally, I was thinking maybe the author was also trying to show that this kind of thing happened like everywhere in the United States, not just in the South where we might sort of think about it happening a lot because that's where slavery was and there was the Jim Crow laws, but that this sort of happened maybe everywhere because early in the story they mentioned that her voice, Marion's voice, is unaccented, so she's not from the South. Also, she's born in Pennsylvania. So I think that the idea that this could happen anywhere in the country is important, possibly, to the author. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. So some of the reasons why Marion challenges some of these customs, I think hopefully are pretty obvious to us. I think that they want to show that she recognizes that the way Marion is treated is extremely unfair. That this is not okay behavior, all of it. And she's highlighting that for us, the reader. Now, I'm thinking maybe Marion is calm for most of it, and then she explodes kind of at the end there to show how hard it must have been that she had to sit there and try to take this kind of abuse, and that it probably was hard like that for a lot of people. It would obviously be hard like that for me, since like even the very first thing he says about, the flock of kids, really, it would have set me off. It's not something I would have accepted. But they had to. So I think that it makes sense to show that this would be something hard for people to do. Also, I think that maybe they were trying to, or the authors trying to show the reader what the consequences could be if a Black person didn't act exactly as they were expected to act. All right, that's about it for me here. This is a strategy that you could absolutely use with any text that you're reading. I think that you should give it a shot. If you're not ready to do that yet, that's fine, but it is an option for you. If you are having any questions or need any help, please just get in contact with me. You have my email. You can reach me on Google Hangouts, or I will see you during one of my office hours sometime this week. Have a great day. Thanks.